he was connected with EDLO office and Paras Inoho, an associate's law office from 2010 up to 2014. He was also the legal retainer of Gender Watch Against Violence and Exploitation, or JWAVE, and a volunteer lawyer of Dr. Jovito Arsalonga Center for Law and Development. He was also an assistant professor of AMA Computer College under the Business Administration program in 2007 and senior high in 2020. A professor of law at Foundation University College of Law and Silliman University College of Law in 2015. Currently, he is an instructor of Colegio de Santa Catalina de Alejandria, Foundation University, and Negros Oriental State University, and under the Criminology Department. And lastly, he is a licensed real estate broker and a licensed real estate appraiser. And now, let us all welcome, with a loud applause, Attorney Edric E. Pelmocho.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me clearly? Tira?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so thank you very much for that very kind introduction. And before I start, let me thank the organizers for coming up with this activity. Indeed, this is very important and very helpful, considering that if we want to put an end to domestic violence, we need to work hard. We need to work hand in hand. We need to do it as one, because one person cannot do it alone. But we need the cooperation of everyone, and we need constant information drive, because the more people know about the rights of women and children, and the more people will know that there are laws that are available to the victims of domestic violence, then there is a big chance that this problem in our society will come to an end. So thank you very much, Ma'am Marino, for inviting me and to allow me to share my knowledge with respect to domestic violence. So now, violence against women, when we talk about domestic violence, we always associate it with violence against women and children. Why? Because women and children are considered to be the vulnerable individuals in our society. Actually, the term vulnerable should be changed, should be erased. Because if we always associate women and children as vulnerable, then there would be no end to this misconception that women and children are the weaker parts or the weaker groups of our society. So let us not use the word vulnerable to describe women and children. Instead, we should always consider women and children as co-equal with men in the society. That women and children play also vital roles in our society. But in as much as we want to claim that women and children are not vulnerable, but a lot of people still consider them as vulnerable and as very weak individuals in our society. That's the problem now. Because even some of you now present today would still consider women and children as weaker individuals in our society. Okay? I will not ask you whether you agree with me or not, but that is the truth and that is a fact. Because if none of us would think that women are vulnerable or children are vulnerable, then as early as now, there would have been no more cases of violence against women and children. But sad to say, there are still a lot of cases pending before our courts. And what is the sadder part? The perpetrators are the husbands, the perpetrators are the boyfriends, and the perpetrators are the relatives of the victims. And violence against women appears as one of the country's pervasive social problems. This is not a personal problem, but this is a social problem, wherein students, teachers, government officials, the government as a whole, the business sectors, the training centers, And every one of us should cooperate in eliminating domestic violence, not only in our country, but in the entire world. Now, according to the 2017 National Demographic and Health Survey conducted by the Philippine Statistics Authority, 1 in 4 Filipino women aged 15 to 49 has experienced physical, emotional, or sexual violence by their husband and partner. It is indeed alarming that despite efforts to address the concern, violence against women still exists. Okay? If you look at the police station, you could see a number of reports. When you go to the courts, there are a lot of cases pending. When you go to NGOs like Gender Watch Against Violence and Exploitation, every day there are complaints. There are cases being referred to. All right? Now, how are we going to stop? How are we going to eliminate domestic violence? It's, of course, education, constant information. Because if all of us know the rights of women and children, then we would be thinking twice whether to commit violence to the women or to the children. Now, as I mentioned a while ago, violence may come in several forms. We have physical, that's common, physical. We have psychological. We have emotional. We have economic. And we have sexual. So there are 4: sexual, economic, psychological or emotional, and physical. Now, I have a presentation here. Let me share this to you so that you'll be guided also in my discussion.
Ang sabihin ako phone mo.
Nakatutoy na nini mo?
Mm.
Mura katutoy nini mo, break sa gamay. Tuyo na nimo laptop. Tuyo, sarap.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So here, let's talk about violence against women and children. Now, violence against women is violence that is gender-based. What do you mean by gender-based? It is considering women and children as the weaker parts or the weaker individuals of our society. That is why, because they are women and because they are children, they are tend to be victims of violence. That is what is meant by violence that is gender-based. And violence against women, domestic violence, including children, is considered violence that is gender-based. Now, gender-based violence means that women are subjected to violence or abuse because they are women. No matter how successful the woman is, but because the fact remains that she is a woman, then she can be subjected to violence in whatever form. Now, let's define what is violence against women and children, or VAUC. Now, it refers to any act or series of acts committed by any person against a woman who is his wife, former wife, or against a woman with whom the person has or had a sexual or dating relationship, or with whom he has a common child, or against her child, whether legitimate or illegitimate, within or without the family abode, which result in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological harm or suffering, or economic abuse, including threats of such acts, battery, assault, coercion, harassment, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty. If you notice, the definition of VAUC includes all possibilities that a perpetrator could commit to the victim. And it includes also the definition of the victim as well as the definition of the perpetrator. So, the victim could be a wife, a former wife in case there is legal separation or there is annulment, or against a woman with whom the person has or had a sexual or dating relationship. In other words, boyfriend girlfriend relationship, lesbian relationship would fall under VAUSI. So it's not limited only to husband and wife, but it includes everybody who have dating and sexual relationship with each other. So even if the sexual relationship is just a single instance, like say for example, you engage the services of a prostitute, okay? Now, even if the sexual encounter is once only, but considering there is sexual relationship, then that would be considered as VAUSI already. Or the victim may be the child, whether legitimate or illegitimate, committed within the family abode or outside the family abode, and will result or is likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological harm, or suffering or economic abuse. So these are the 4 kinds of abuses or 4 kinds of violence under VAUSI. Okay, so remember that physical, there's no problem with physical. We know that already. Mga sumbag, sampalong, kulata. And what's the evidence? We have bruises, we have mga contusion, and other marks found in the body of the victim. And medical certificate will support to that effect. Then we have sexual. It includes having sexual intercourse to a woman against her will. So even if the victim is your wife, but if your wife doesn't want to have sexual intercourse with the husband should respect the wife. It doesn't mean that it's the obligation of the wife to always say yes every time the husband would like to have sexual intercourse with her. The moment she says no, the husband should respect that. If the husband continues to force or coerce the wife to have sexual intercourse with her, then that constitutes sexual abuse. Then we have psychological or emotional abuse. There may be no physical violence inflicted, but the psychological and the emotional suffering of the victim is always very significant as well. So what are examples of physical or emotional violence? Okay, like you have another affair with another woman, and the moment the wife knows that, then the wife could no longer sleep, could no longer think properly. She would be suffering from mental anxiety. She would be suffering from sleepless nights, mental anguish, so and other mental suffering. So that is also a form of violence. And the other one is economic abuse. Okay, if you cannot support your wife and children anymore, then that constitutes economic abuse. Although in raising a family, the support should be shared by both the husband and the wife. But if it can be noted that the husband is no longer giving his share to the family's expenses, then that constitutes economic abuse. It also includes other acts such as battery, assault, coercion, harassment, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty. Okay, so please do understand the definition of violence against women and children, or if not, you have to memorize it also. Okay, so that is the definition, the complete definition of violence against women and children, or VAUSI. All right, so these are the 4 kinds of abuse that I already mentioned earlier. Now, VAU may be committed within the family. It may be committed in the community. So it's not a personal issue, but it is a social issue wherein the society in general should make sure that vow could no longer exist in the community. So they should make sure that they have mechanism on how to solve the existence of this violence. So in the family, the very common abuse is marital rape or rape by intimate partners, as well as wife battering. In the community, it may include rape by neighbor, or rape by relative, by a friend, or sexual harassment, or even trafficking. Okay. All right. Now, what are the root causes of vow? Now, you might be asking the question, why is there vow? All right. Now, vow exists because of some social beliefs. Okay. Some social beliefs which have been existing ever since the world began. All right. So we have this what we call patriarchal mentality. So what do you mean by patriarchal mentality? It means that men are stronger than women. That men should decide for the family. That men are more intelligent than women. Okay? That there is no world when there are no men. So that is the understanding of patriarchal mentality. And sad to say, this mindset, this concept is still present. Okay, why should I say that it is still present as of the moment? Now, let me ask you this question. You just answer it mentally. Who decides in your family? Is it your mother or the father? As simple as that. If your answer is the father, then that is an example of patriarchal mentality. If we want to put an end to domestic violence, if we want to put an end to violence against women and children, then we should change that mindset from patriarchal mentality to equality in the family. Men and women, husband and wife should decide equally. Their voices should be co-equal to each other. Right? Second is commercialization of women. Okay. If you look at the billboards, mga tarpaulin, sa mga advertisement, di ba? Most advertisements would showcase women as the endorser.
Naribang niya walay diaper?
Because we believe that women are saleable in terms of selling products and services. Samot na og ang babae gatupis, gabra, gapanti. You look at mga alcoholic beverages. Kita ba mong lalaki ang gi-feature? No, you cannot. Or maybe naaguro, but seldom. 1, 2, or 3. But in most cases, women are portrayed, okay, in the advertisements because of the commercialization of women. So again, if we want to put an end to domestic violence, then there should be no more commercialization of women. Next, men are better than women in terms of political, economic, and family decision makings. These are our understandings before. But now, naapay gamay. But what is something to be proud of is slowly this mentality has been changed. Alright? Now, if you look at our political, our politics today, there are a lot of women already in Congress. There are a lot of women already in the Senate. There are women already who became presidents of our country. There are several women who are holding highest positions in the company, all right, in the government. Like even our dean in the Colegio de Santa Catarina de Alejandria is a woman. That is a manifestation. that we strongly believe on the capacity of women to hold higher ranks in our school. Okay, now let's proceed. Another reason why vow exists is social tolerance. Okay, we may be notified by the existence of this violence, but we just tolerate them. We do not report, dili ta magpakialam, because we always believe that it's a family problem. Alright? And as a family problem, the family should solve it themselves. We should not participate, we should not interfere. Nakita niya'y maapil, maalahig. That is a wrong concept. Okay? Affairs of the family members are deemed private, not to be interfered with by outsiders or the state. That is a misconception. Affairs of the family members should be a social concern. Right? Now, we also have this cultura di aguanta. Like, we could always hear statements from mothers who have been victims of violence who would always say that I'll just wait until my husband is reformed. Kanus apa? Until when would you expect for the reformation of your husband? Well, we are not generalizing all men, but there may be men who would be reformed. But what if he will not? Okay? So that is the problem now. And the next is victim blaming and justification of perpetrators' acts. Imagine, victim na ka, ikaw pa'y giblame. Okay? In what way that victims are blamed by the perpetrators? Like nag-wild ang husband. What's the reason? Because the wife failed to prepare food. Because the wife is out working. Because the wife was not able to take care of the children. Okay? Kay gapa-sexy ang wife, gapa-sexy ang babayi, gapakigol, galakaw sa dalan. So lalaki raman mi, how would you expect us to react? Diba? Mangurog mi, manginit mi. That is wrong. Okay? You have no license to rape the woman just because she dresses that way. Okay? Next. Now, certain psychological characteristics of perpetrators. So these are the beliefs of men. And because of these beliefs, men tend to become perpetrators. Number one, physical. Men should be virile and athletic. Functional. Men should be the provider and the breadwinner. Third, sexual. Men should be aggressive, and single men with experience is acceptable. That's our understanding. That's why there are peer pressures among students, because dili ka tinuod nga lalaki if dili ka kasulay og sexual intercourse with a woman. That is a wrong concept. Number 4, emotional. Self-control, and men should not cry. What's wrong with crying? What's wrong with expressing your emotion? But because of our understanding and belief that men are strong, they should not cry. Because the moment they cry, they are no longer men, as they say it. Okay, number 5, intellectual. Men should think in a logical, rational, and practical manner. And number 6, interpersonal. Men should be the leader and men should be dominating. There is nothing wrong with this description of men as long as you respect the rights of women. But the moment violence exists because of believing this way, then that is what makes that belief and understanding wrong. Okay? Let's proceed. Now, what's the impact of vow? So, number 1, vow strikes at the personhood of women. As a result, It is an assault on the dignity of women and their right to self-determination. What happens if the dignity of women is lost? And what happens now is if there is no more right to self-determination? Women will no longer be productive. Women would continue to believe that they are very weak. And if they continue to believe that way, then let us not expect anymore that this violence would come to an end. So with that, we need to empower women to become stronger and to become better individuals who are cautious with the rights that the law provides them. Okay? Next, it limits freedom of movement and compromises a person's mental and physical integrity. So women will just stay at home. Women could no longer air their concerns. Women could no longer voice out their concerns. Next, vow takes away women's control over their bodies and lives. Okay? So women could no longer take care of themselves. So for what? Why should we take care of ourselves? Considering that we are always victims of violence. Ang ako dagang role sa world, sa life, is igo akong himuog punching bag. So that is the thing of women. So we have to encourage them to be stronger and braver. Next, known to have resulted in deprivation, emotional stress, injury, disability, and even death. Okay. Next, another impact that vow women is that it limits the growth and potential of women. Now, there are women who have the potential to succeed and to become better individuals in our community. But because of violence, it limits the growth and development of women towards achieving their goals as better individuals in the society. Violence and abuse have grave consequences on women's health, education, and ability to earn an income. It is an obstacle to women's full participation in and contribution to national and community life. So that's the problem. If a lot of women are victims of violence, then only a few would be able to contribute and participate towards national and community building. So we have to include everyone towards nation building, especially those who are victims of violence. The moment violence would come to an end, the moment that all would believe that they have important roles in our society, and the moment the women believes that they are empowered, stronger, braver, and better, then there would be a greater impact towards nation building. All right. As a conclusion, violence against women is a social and not a personal issue. So we should be
Hello?
we should
Hello?
what do you call that one? Kanang dapat magkuanta no kana baganing ug natay makan nga violence, we should act right away. We should not tolerate the abuses suffered by the victims. The use of cultural preservation as a justification for vow is not acceptable, and protection by the state from violence is not inimical to family or cultural integrity. Violence against women is a violation of a person's basic human right to life. It is the responsibility of the state to protect and promote this right. That's why we have several laws now that protect the rights of women and the rights of children. Later on, I will be discussing this, several laws that afford women's rights and children's rights. All right. So, no one deserves to be abused. and no one has the right to abuse others. Ug walay magpaabuso, wala po'y ang abuso. So it's a two-way thing. You should not allow anybody to abuse you because nobody has the right to abuse you. You should stand up and protect yourself from abuses. Okay. Categories of human rights that VOW violates. Right to development, rights, we discussed already. Survival rights, the right to life, the right to a life of dignity, to live free from fear, threat, and persecution. The right to express oneself, the right to counsel and to due process, the right to humane treatment while in detention, and reproduction. That's why today we already have the Magna Carta of Women's Rights. It provides all the rights of women that men ought to respect. Okay? It's called Magna Carta of Women's Rights, not Magna Carta for Women's Rights, because the law does not give it because they are women, they are women, but because as a woman they are as women they are entitled. No, it's innate in them to have these rights. So Magna Carta of Women's Rights, meaning it's their right. Wala na gihatag para ila, but ilahon na from the very beginning. That should be our understanding. These rights are women's rights, not for the women. Okay? So there is a difference between of and for. We have to go for of and not for. Right to express, okay, right to humane treatment while in detention, and reproductive rights. Okay, now, every time there is violence, government would be spending for that. So there are 4 categories of the economic costs of VOW. First is direct tangible cost. It's actual expenses paid, representing real money spent. Example, in 1998, medical costs for 187,500 domestic violence cases involving less serious physical injuries came to 33.4 million pesos. Imagine if there were no violence, so the 33.4 million could have been spent to other purposes. In 1998, medical costs for 216,000 domestic violence cases involving serious physical injuries came to 57.6 million. 8,869 is average monthly shelter cost per client in the Women's Crisis Center. Imagine that. And government is spending this much because of this domestic violence. Number 2, indirect tangible costs. So, have monetary value in the economy but are measured as a loss of potential. Example, lower earnings and profits resulting from reduced productivity. So, if you are victims of violence, you cannot perform your work well because you are suffering from a lot of problems. You think of a lot of things. So, it will reduce productivity. And what happens if productivity is reduced? Your earning also is reduced, and the earning of the company is also reduced. So it's not only the victim who is affected, but the family, the community, and the company that she is working at. Number 3, direct intangible costs result directly from the violent act but have no monetary value. Example, pain and suffering. Okay? It has no monetary value, but it results directly from violent act. Okay. Next, number 4. Indirect tangible costs. It results indirectly from the violence and have no monetary value. Example, negative psychological effects on children who witness violence which cannot be estimated numerically. So again, the victim, the victim's problem would be would affect also, no, the children in the family, because the children who witness violence would create an impact to themselves as well. Okay. In the global situation, at least 1 out of every 3 women around the world has been beaten, coerced into sex, or otherwise abused in her lifetime. 1 in 5 women will become a victim of rape or attempted rape. Okay, factors that keep women in violent, abusive relationships. So why would women still retain the relationship even if they have been victims of violence already? Number 1, emotional factors. This means that women hope that the abusive partner will change. Women are concerned with their children. And because of the love and emotional investment they have with their partner, and because of lack of confidence to make the decision. So, kani, mga emotional factors, this can only be solved due to constant training, information drive, wherein we should keep on informing women to be empowered. Okay? That by instilling in their minds that they can do it even if their husbands or partners are no longer with them. Second, societal and cultural norms. We have patriarchal understanding that women should put the rights, welfare, and interest of others above their own. Family preservation at all costs, and normalization of abuse and violence. We always say that family should be preserved. Kay lisod kaayog magbulag ang manag-asawa. Luoy ang mga anak. So even if violence happens every day at home, but because of what we want, that family is preserved, then we just try to tolerate, no, and eat the abuses of the partners, which is wrong. Okay, which is wrong. The moment the woman stands up, the moment the wife says that, husband, it's no longer right, no, to abuse me, then it might ring a bell to the ears of the husband or partner that what he is doing is no longer right, proper, and appropriate. Third, structural factors. We have lack of resources, lack of support system, even our legal, dugay kayo ang kaso, of course you have to pay. There are NGOs like G-Wave wherein our services is for free, but it doesn't mean that the victim would no longer be spending. Like kanadeng pag-travel from home towards the office, every time na ay hearing, she has to spend, no, for the fare. She has to spend for the food. So even if services, legal services are for free, but still women would incur expenses to that effect. Medical and social services, lack of education or awareness. That's why we have this information campaign, information drive, so that a lot of women, or if not, all women should be aware of their rights. Lack of legal protective measures, lack of employment, and training opportunities. So, kalagmitan sa mga babae, walay trabaho. They just depend on their husband. So, kaya depend mo siya sa husband, then they give everything to their husband, like decision making, etc. And even the abuse and violence, they are already giving their husbands a license to do it to them because wala sila'y pwedeng kadaganan. Wala sila'y trabaho, mag-unsa man sila, mag-unsa ang mga bata, walay makaon. Unless if naakay work, you can stand alone. So that's why there are empowered women nowadays. So dili gyud bagsigi ang violence in their home. But if there is no opportunity, then tendency, violence, and abuses would still continue to exist within family abode. All right. Now, these are the misconceptions about vow. Number one is victim blaming. As I mentioned a while ago, victim blaming. Sala sa babae. Nga naman siyang gi-rape because her family is poor and they all sleep in the same room, di ba? Gi-rape sa papa ang bata kay they are sleeping in the same room. Kay og dato punta sila, they can afford to have individual rooms. All right. So, that is a misconception. That her mother works abroad and she is alone with her father in the house. So, sabi kay wala ang mama, pwede di ay ipuli ang anak. Dili, okay? Next, she was out late at night. Sabi kay gabi na mauli. Igato na rin yung bayanan ni. No, that's wrong because there are women who are working at night. Because she was wearing sexy clothes. Na may mga babae nga, they are comfortable wearing sexy clothes. Okay? And because she was flirting, because flirt, imo na dagripon, all right? So, flirting should not be equated with raping. Rape is different from flirting. Another one, he raped, nang rape siya because his wife was abroad and he had not had sex for a long time. Is that a valid excuse why you raped your child? Because it has been such a long time that you had no sex and your wife is not here? That's wrong. Second, the girl was alone with him and he couldn't resist temptation. Pwede ba ka makaingon nga, natintal ramang gugo, I cannot control my feelings? That's wrong. Because he had been drinking sugo sa panulay sa bino. Huh? O wala pat ako nakainom, I wouldn't have done that. But because nakainom ko, magnalimot ko sa akong panghuna-huna. That is wrong. Because he had been taking drugs. That's wrong. Because he had been looking at pornographic videos or magazines. That is wrong. Because the devil got into him. That's wrong. His friends egged him on. That's also wrong. And he thought the girl didn't mean it when she said no. So when you offered to have sexual intercourse with a woman or with a girl and the girl says no, you believe nga murag dili man to siya seryoso nga niyong no way. Ganahan ni siya, di ba? So dili na pwede. You should not conclude in behalf of the girl or on behalf of the woman that he did not mean to say no. Okay? So actually, when we talk about violence against women and children, when we talk about domestic violence, the very first law that we could think of that will support women and children in times of violence is Republic Act 9262 or the Violence Against Children and Welfare Act. We will be discussing this law and the other laws that protect women after this. So the objectives of RA 9262 is to eliminate vow, to provide reliefs to victims of vow, and to punish perpetrators of vow. Okay, now that is the end of my first presentation. Now, here, we are going to discuss another slide. If we still have time later on, I'll give you some cases no to ponder para lang makabalutan no of how to answer it and how to address these issues in case these issues would be present, right? So for now, I'll talk about some laws that are relevant. Okay, Rako, wala Rako naglag. Can you hear me clearly? And
Sir, sir.
stop ha. Okay, just tell me. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Right. So these are the Philippine laws on VAUSI. We have Child Abuse Law. We have Republic Act 7610. We have Sexual Harassment Law, Republic Act 7877. We have Rape Law, Republic Act 8353. And we have Trafficking Law, Republic Act 9208 as amended by Republic Act 10364. We have Domestic Violence Law or the Anti-Violence Against Women and Children, the Republic Act 9262. We have Child Pornography Law, Republic Act 9775, and the Anti-Photo and Video Voyeurism Act or Republic Act 9995. Now let's start with RA 7610. It's Special Protection of Children Against Child Abuse, Exploitation, and Discrimination Act of 1992. So who is a child? Meaning, who can be victims of child abuse? We have any person below 18 years of age. So there's no question of that. There's no question with that, because the moment you are 18 years of age, then you are no longer considered as a child, right? So anyone who is below 18 is considered a child. Or you can be more than 18, but you are unable to protect yourself because of physical or mental disability or condition. Katong mga naay mental problem. So even if you're already 40 years old and you have mental or psychological disability or condition, then you are considered as a child for purposes of the child abuse law. Okay, why? Because they have no capacity to protect themselves from all forms of abuses. What is child abuse? It includes psychological or emotional maltreatment, physical abuse, neglect, cruelty, or even sexual abuse. It also includes any act or word which debases or demeans the dignity of a child as a human being. So, what are the examples of actions that would debase or demean the dignity of a child as a human being? The moment you slap the face of a child, remember, ang atong face, ang atong head is very important because it represents the totality of us. Okay? It includes everything about us. So, munang importante ang ulo. May pag-imo na gayng, may pag-imo na lamang sampalungon ang kamot. Ayaw ra gyud ang ulo. Because the head carries the dignity, okay, of a person. Imong ino ng bata nga butol, okay, kanang bukanol or sa ba dinha kanang walay kaugmaon. So these are actions or words that debase or demean the dignity of a child as a human being. So who may file a complaint? Remember, okay, abuses, child abuse is not a personal issue, but it's a social concern wherein all of us should take note as well. We have first the offended party. If the offended party doesn't want to file a complaint, then the parents or the guardian. If walay parents and guardian, then ascendant or collateral relative within third degree of consanguinity. Or if wala, then we have the social worker or any representative from a child caring institution. Then we also have the barangay chairman. Wala, at least 3 concerned citizens where violation occurred. This time, dili ta ma-appeal, no? Because abuse is already a social concern, then we should be concerned also as a citizen of the world. So at least 3 concerned citizens who have personal knowledge of the violation. Right? Then in all cases of child abuse, let's all be mindful of the confidentiality. So it shall be unlawful to print, announce, or cause undue and sensationalized publicity of the case. That's why we cover the face of the child, we cover the name of the child, or even if sa mga rape, we will not use the name of the child. So you would see Mga letters like AAA is the victim of rape, like that, no? So that is to protect the identity of the victim. And it is also a way of complying the confidentiality clause of Republic Act 7610. Okay, so that is child abuse. Then we have Republic Act 7877, or the Sexual Harassment Law of 1995. The word harassment, class, for all of us connotes kana ba ganing si kag teksan, si kag sundon-sundon, kana bang pianoy ka, ikapikapon ka, di ba? So that is our understanding of harassment. That's correct. But for purposes of understanding Republic Act 7877, let's not use that kind of definition of harassment, because sexual harassment is different. It may be true, no, as a definition of harassment in VAUSI, in violence against women and children. But in Republic Act 7877, the word harassment connotes another meaning. And what is this sexual harassment? If this is any unwanted sexual advances or requests for sexual favors, which also includes sexual conduct that creates pressure, discriminates, or produces a hostile environment, okay, in the form of physical contact, verbal contact like suggestions, jokes, threats, obscene comments, written contact like letters, notes, texts, or email messages, visual contact like gestures, posting obscene or offensive posters, cartoons, and the like. But ang difference, ani, is the place where harassment is committed. Okay? So it's committed in the workplace, in the business environment, wherein naay boss and naay employees. And the boss, of course, because he is the head of the company, then he has moral ascendancy or control over the employees in terms of promotion, in terms of salary increase, in terms of giving opportunities to the employees. So if the boss says, okay, I can promote you now, provided you go with me in Boracay. Kitarang duha. Oh, what would you expect? When the boss offered that to the employee, that they will go to Boracay, sila rang duha. Of course, it connotes something else, right? And if the employee says no, then that might create a negative impact to her employment career. Maybe the boss would fire her, or maybe the boss would think of ways on how to remove her from work. Okay? That's the first environment where sexual harassment may take place. Second is in the education, like school. Common sa mga school. Okay? Mingon ang teacher nga, o sige, tagaan ti kag dakong grado. Provided, you sleep with me. Oh. We will retain your scholarship, or tagaan ti kag scholarship basta pahikapa ko. Manginana. Na ay mga there's nothing wrong with helping your student. There's nothing wrong with helping your employees. Basta genuine ang intention to help your employees, to help your students. The moment tayo kapalit and it's against the will of the student or the employee, then we should respect that. Okay? There's nothing wrong with offering. Okay, that's your right. Provided may consent po ang pikas. Kaya ganahan na po siya. Kaya what if naibog ang employee sa boss? O ganahan ang employee mo puig sa boss sa Boracay? So wala problema na. But if the woman does not give consent to that, meaning there's no permission, then we should respect that. The moment we violate that, then it becomes a form of harassment. And the third area or environment where harassment could take place is training. Like you are in a training center. Ako'y ga-training nyo. Mga trainees na mo. Tutor ko, tuties mo. Inana. So sexual harassment is possible also to exist there. Who commits sexual harassment? Employer, manager, supervisor, for the business or work. Teacher, instructor, professor, coach, or anyone having authority or influence. And for what purpose? The sexual favor is offered as a condition for employment, wage increase, promotion, or the like. The sexual favor is offered as a condition for a passing grade, scholarship, etc. If ang nag-offer is a co-employee of the same rank, or pareha mong teacher, sexual harassment or 7877 does not apply. Alright? Pwede ka sa laing balaod perhaps, but if we talk about 7877, it is not applicable. Why? Because there is no moral ascendancy, there is no control, there is no influence. Like pareha mong duwang teacher, what's your power over the other teacher? Minka nga, magkuan ta kay tagaan tikaw og dako nga sweldo. Oh, di ba pwede ka sweldo? Di ba? It's the school. So wala kay right. But if you are the boss, you have the control, you have the influence, you have the moral ascendancy. Tendency, dili maka-say no ang bata because naa kay control or influence over him or her. Alright? So that is 7877. If you have questions, just take note of that. We will answer everything after I end the discussion. Okay? Then we have Republic Act 8353 or the new rape law of 1997. Before 1997, before October 22, 1997, rape is considered as a crime against chastity. Chastity na siya. But effective October 22, 1997, when Republic Act 8353 took into effect, the crime of rape is now considered as a crime against person. And naatay mga changes also because it includes now the rape through sexual assault. Sa una, it's only rape by sexual intercourse, no? Katong common kaayo nga rape, wherein the rapist is a man, the victim is a woman, gipugos ang babayi, nagdalaganay, nagisi ang sanina, nagisi ang panty, there is insertion of the penis to the vagina, there is push-pull movement. That's our understanding of rape before. But now, with 8353, rape includes another form, which is rape through sexual assault. Kung sa maning rape by sexual assault, okay? This is insertion of the penis into the anus or the mouth. So if you inserted the penis to the anus of a woman, that is rape. If you inserted the anus to the man, that is also rape. In other words, under the new rape law, victims men could also be victims of rape. And women could also be perpetrators of rape. Later on, now I will discuss that. So, or if you inserted the penis to the mouth of the woman or to the mouth of the man, that is rape by sexual assault. Insertion of objects into the vagina or anal orifice. So, with this act, pwede babae ang perpetrator. Like, babae ko, akong gi-insert akong finger because under the law, fingers are considered objects. So, if I inserted my finger to the vagina, babae ang victim, babae po ang perpetrator. Or, if I inserted my finger to the anus of a man, so pwede. Okay? Or any other objects. It could be a bottle, a baseball bat, a canister, a ball pen, eraser, etc. as long as it's an object. So, question, what if ang object gi-insert sa mouth? Dili pwede. Dapat ang object gi-insert sa vagina and anus. Pero kung penis, pwede ang mouth. Alright? Tongue also is considered as an object under the law. So take note of that. Okay, here, okay, genital, any object, anus, any object, mouth, penis. Okay, we discussed it already. Next, rape committed through force, intimidation, threat. You know this already in your criminal law 1 and criminal law 2. force, intimidation, threat, deprive of reason or otherwise unconscious, fraudulent machination, grave abuse of authority. When the offended party is under 12 years of age or is demented, even though none of the circumstances mentioned above be present. So bisag walay force, walay intimidation, walay threat, basta ang biktima is under 12, automatically it's statutory rape. Okay, showing skin is not a crime. That's correct. But rape is a crime. Sex is not a crime. Rape is a crime. Okay? These are simple words, simple statements which create greater impact to our lives. Intimacy is not a crime. Rape is a crime. Prostitution is not a crime. But rape is a crime. Drinking is not a crime. But rape is a crime. Always remember that. Let's not use alcoholic beverages. Let's not use intoxication as an excuse for us to commit rape. There should always be respect towards women and children, and even to men, to other men, because there are also men who are vulnerable and who may be subjected to rape. And again, because of this patriarchal concept, because of this belief that men are strong, sometimes men who are victims of violence could no longer air their voices because they are afraid that they would be considered as members of the LGBT. Okay? So itago na laman. No? But if you look at it, there could be hundreds and thousands of cases involving men as victims of violence. But let us not discount the fact nga di gyud pwedeng maapsan ang babae in reality. Daghan naman tingali ang mga lalaking biktima sa violence, but mas daghan gyud ang babae nga victims of violence. That's rape. Next, trafficking. As amended or expanded under RA 10364. Okay? What is trafficking? What is traffic? Before, my understanding of traffic is gahuot ang dalan. But when I studied law, that's the time I learned that traffic has a different meaning. Traffic is movement of vehicles. So natay light traffic, meaning dili traffic. Light traffic. Naputay heavy traffic. Kanang bumper to bumper na, like what we usually see along EDSA. So that's heavy traffic. So it's not only vehicles who are being trafficked, but also people. They are being trafficked. Gikuha, gipadala, gibaligya. Para himuong slave. Para kuwaag organ. Okay? So a lot of cases are pending in courts on trafficking. So trafficking is recruitment, transportation, transfer, harbor, receipt, obtain, hire, provide, offer, maintain, and it is being committed by means of threat, imong hadlokon, use of force, or pwede walay hadlok-hadlok imong giuwat na naay maayong trabaho dito, no? Ang sweldo dako. Okay, but when you arrive at the country of destination, lahi ang iyang gitrabaho. Right? So abduction, that is kidnapping with lewd design. Taking advantage of the vulnerability of the person, especially katong mga pobre sa bukid, no? Nga ganahan mo asenso. Kani they are vulnerable. I'm not saying that all of the people in the countryside or in the rural areas are always vulnerable. Na iban nga dili, pero kalagmitan, no? Vulnerable gina sila. Even in the city, urban areas, na gani mauwat, di ba? How much more these people who are not educated, these people who are illiterate. Okay? So they are prone to be victims of trafficking. Himuog model, ilis-ilisan, ana, but it turned out nga gibaligya sila sa mga foreigners. They show on-cam for money. And then abuse of power or of position, giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person, having control over another person. And what's the purpose? We have exploitation, prostitution, sexual exploitation, cybersex, through the internet, forced labor, patrabahoon, without sweldo. Kay asam di ang sweldo? Ang gakuha, ang katong mga perpetrators of trafficking. Slavery or similar practices, removal of organs, kidney, etc. Exploitation. All right. So next. Trafficking can happen with or without the victim's consent or knowledge. Who are trafficked? Women and men, children, girls and boys. Why are they vulnerable? Because of minority and because of poverty. Those in conflict areas and areas visited by disasters, refugees and illegal migrants, mainly because of their low levels of education and illiteracy. So who are the traffickers and the buyers? We have the illegal recruiters, mga sindikato, local pimps and procurers, kani mga bugaw. Mga talent managers, they are also prone to commit trafficking. Male buyers, local and foreign, of prostituted women and children. Okay? So, there are a lot of foreigners who are pedophiles, nga ganahan sila bata. So, that's why mupalit sila og mga trafficked boys and girls. Who may file a complaint? Okay, any person, yapon ta ha, who has personal knowledge of the commission. Unlike in child abuse law, it requires 3 concerned citizens. But in trafficking, bisag usara ang pwedeng mo file. Trafficked person, his or her parents, spouse, siblings, children, or legal guardian. Still, confidentiality rule applies in trafficking. Affidavits of desistance. All right, so courts should be prudent in assessing the case. It should not be inclined at all times in dismissing cases of trafficking. So cases involving trafficking in person should not be dismissed based on the affidavit of desistance executed by the victims or their parents or legal guardians. The court should be convinced that dismissing the case is for the welfare of the victim. Pero kung nakabalo ang korte na there is a possibility that the victims are paid just to desist the case, desist from the case, then the court should not honor the desistance coming from the victim. Unlike in other crimes, di ba, nga the courts will no longer mind as long as there is affidavit of desistance, so the court will respect that. But in trafficking, dili pwede. Why? Because the court believes, or it is judicial knowledge, it is judicial notice that daghang kwarta ang involved in trafficking. Especially the traffickers, it's expected that they have so much money. So kayang bayaran ang biktima para muhilom. And as a public crime, it's the duty of the court to see to it that everything is in accord with the welfare of the victims of trafficking. Okay. So dapat ang desistance should not be coupled with force, threat, coercion, fraud, deception, abuse of power, or by giving of compensation. And those people who are doing this will also be punished. Okay. Immunity from suit. All right. So maybe you would be asking, what happens to those individuals who are concerned sa panghitabo, no? Basig kihaan yata, no? Or ana. So the law also affords protection to the individuals who may be concerned with the victims of trafficking, like the policemen, law enforcement officers, social workers, or other persons following their lawful order for acts done during an authorized rescue operation, recovery or intervention, investigation or prosecution, are immune from suit provided the acts were done in good faith. So there's always a presumption of regularity on the part of the law enforcement officers. So that's it. So next, retaliatory suit. The prosecution of retaliatory suits against victims of trafficking shall be held in abeyance pending final resolution and decision of criminal complaint for trafficking. So posible no nga mobalos ang traffickers or ang perpetrators. Mukiha pud sila against the victim. So the rule is, with respect to retaliatory suit, they should be held in abeyance. Dili sa siya ipadayon, no? I-hold sa ang complaint sa traffickers pending the resolution and decision of the criminal complaint for trafficking. Unahon sa og-decide ang complaint for trafficking. So with that, we are confident that we are free from any retaliatory suit should we file a complaint against the perpetrators of human trafficking. Okay? Law enforcement officers, prosecutors, judges will be penalized if they urge complainants to withdraw cases for trafficking. That's it. 9262, I actually discussed this already. So let's just select some slides that are significant. So we know what is VAUSI, we know what are the acts or violence that constitute VAUSI, who are liable, we discussed that already. Who are considered victims, we're done with that. And who may file a complaint, okay? Any citizen, bisag usa, any citizen who have personal knowledge of the circumstances of the crime. This is because violence against women and children is considered a public crime. It's not a private crime, but a public crime. So the perpetrators here are now considered as a threat to the entire country. That's why we should always be concerned with what's happening around us. And if there are abuses, then we should take action. All right. Section 34 provides for exemption of those people intervening, and they are exempt from any liability. So any person, whether private individual or police authority or barangay official who acting in accordance with the law responds or intervenes. So isimbak ko og makadapat ka sa perpetrator by intervening the act, then you are exempt from any criminal liability. Mura siyang self-defense, di ba? It's a justifying circumstance, but again, the Section 34 does not give license to the intervenors or the individuals who respond to do whatever means he or she should do in order to protect the victim, because we have to take note also of the means employed, no, to repel or to protect the interest of the victim. So kung gidapatan ra sa husband ang biktima, then you come to intervene, nya nag-away na mo sa husband, then sumagay ra. Because if you use gun, you intervene and then you use gun, that's another story. The elements of self-defense now would no longer be present. So take note of the three elements of a valid self-defense because it is also applicable in Section 34 of 9262. What are the remedies in kaso og naamoy nailhang biktima og violence, no? We have barangay protection order. So the abuser is given 15 days not to go inside the house. Bisa pa nagbalay na sa lalaki, dili pwedeng mupaduol ang lalaki within 50 meters for 15 days. What happens after 15 days? Nyo pa sa nag-ayo, i-renew ang 15 days. The 15 days serve as cooling off period, no? To allow the parties to think what should they feel if they are alone for such number of days. Kay basin og init pa kayo sila karon sig away. So palayon sa maybe they could think hala di man day lalim no nga ako ra usa. So mubalik lang ko sa balay, mga ipagpasaylo sa asawa and commit to her that I will not do the same act again. Yun ang istorya. But we could not expect no nga munay mahita po because in a number of cases padayon ra gyapon ang abuses even if it has lapsed, if the 15 days have lapsed already. So what happens if a BPO was already issued and then there's no effect? Then these are the available remedies pa. You can file a temporary protection order before any family court, and it's valid only for 30 days. So, but it's renewable for another 30 days. While pending imong temporary protection order, you may file also a permanent protection order wherein it's valid for a lifetime. Okay? Now, what happens if there is a barangay protection order and the perpetrator did not respect the barangay protection order? Pwede ang atong barangay mukihan nila. Violation of barangay protection order. So nag-file na kag kaso niya for PPO, nag-file na kanya og criminal case for violation of 9262, nag-file na pug niya og sa may lain. PPO, criminal case. Ang barangay officials po, pwede mo file, they can also file a case for violation of the BPO, of the protection order. So it's also a crime. It's punishable by 1 month imprisonment. Okay, next. Let's go to 9775 or the child pornography law. Summoning child pornography law refers to any representation, whether visual, audio, or written combination thereof by electronic, mechanical, digital, optical, magnetic, or any other means of child engaged or involved in real or simulated explicit sexual activity. So, pictures of children na kita ilahong mga private parts, that is, yung i-upload sa internet, sa mga magazine, that is child pornography. It's also a crime. Then we have the Anti-Photo and Video Voyeurism Law. That's Republic Act 9995. This took effect after the incident involving Hayden Ko and Katrina Halili, no? Nga katong gi-upload ang mga videos. So, tulad ato no na implement ning Anti-Photo and Video Voyeurism. So, namin mga pictures, videos with your boyfriend, they okay lang magpicturean nimong duwa, magvideohan nimong duwa, but you have no right to take pictures or take videos without the consent of the other party. As well as you have no right to upload or spread or circulate the pictures or videos to other people without the consent of the other victim, of the other party. So what is photo or video voyeurism? It means the act of taking photo or video coverage of a person or group of persons performing sexual act or any similar activity, or of capturing an image of the private area of a person or persons without the latter's consent under circumstances in which such person or persons have a reasonable expectation of privacy. If you want to become a porn star, the public would see your body, then okay na siya because you consented to it. But if you want to retain privacy and you are not giving consent to anybody to upload or circulate your pictures and videos, then by doing so would constitute a crime of photo or video voyeurism. Selling, maligya ka, dili man tingali ikaw ang nag-upload, nag-circulate, but you sold it, copied it, reproduced it, broadcasted it, shared it, showed, exhibited the photo or video coverage or recordings of such sexual act or similar activity through VCD, DVD, internet, cellular phones, and similar means or device without the written consent of the persons involved, notwithstanding that consent to record or take photo or video coverage of same was given by such persons. All right. So, that concludes the 8 major laws that would protect the women and children in terms of violence and abuses. Are there any question before I will give you mga ginagmayng cases lang to ponder? Are we still okay with it? Are we still okay? Na-absorb.
Yes, attorney. Yes,
Yes, sir.
attorney.
So at least I showed the laws, no? So maybe during your free time, you kindly read the entire law because we cannot discuss the entire law, my God, no? Given 2 hours only. So feel free to read the laws that I presented.
Attorney, question lang, attorney.
Mm.
How about in Dumaguete City or Negros Oriental in this time of pandemic? So what's the rate or situation, attorney? Is it same with Manila with severe increase of domestic violence?
In Dumaguete, if we compare it with the cases in Metro Manila, we expect that lower ang Dumaguete because our city is a very small city compared to Metro Manila areas wherein there are a lot of people, poverty is so high there also, and perpetrators also are crowding in bigger areas. So there are more cases in Metro Manila than in Dumaguete. But still in Dumaguete, naagyapoy mosulod gyud. And that is the sad part also.
A follow-up question, attorney. In cases here in Dumaguete City, is it common on married couples or common law married couples?
It's common to both. We have several cases for common law relationship, and we also have several cases on married couples.
Thank you, attorney.
What's also sad, no? We have these laws that would protect women, but women also would use these laws for their own personal advantage. We encountered one situation wherein there's a woman and then she had an affair with a gardener. And the gardener is working in their house, stay in ang gardener. So the woman would like to have freedom so that they could do what they want to do. But because the husband is there, what happened is she requested her husband to buy her a gun for protection purposes. So now the husband bought a gun, and then the woman took a picture of the gun and reported that to the barangay, saying that the husband threatened her to commit physical harm. So the barangay issued a BPO, and for 15 days, the husband was not allowed to enter the house. So during that span of time, the wife and the gardener were able to have they were able to do whatever they wanted to do during that time. So inana ba, sakit, no? Pero but what's we have to consider is it's just one or only two of the thousands of cases that are happening. So still, we should not lose hope, and we should not stop in sharing this information to all women that these laws are provided in order to protect them from further harm. Oh, kani atong mga students, mga laki, some of you might have girlfriends, di ba? So please do never inflict physical injury to your girlfriends because covered mo ana no sa 9262. Because di ba, as I mentioned a while ago, it's dating and sexual. So even if there's no sexual but you are dating with each other, you are still bound to follow the law. Any more questions?
Sir, ako sir.
Sige, sige.
Unsay kasagaran na na kayang makumit sa mga ano sir, by sir, rape sir kanang pinaka taas yung percentage sir, rape yun.
Your question is what's the crime
Yes.
na
Yes, sir.
sorry siya? What kind of violence nga makumit against the women? Most
Yes, sir,
common.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Ang common, like in G-Wave alone, common is physical violence. So 9262 on physical. Dili kayo ang rape.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So nasabtan na tingali, no? Kaya may mga questions. Okay, so for the remaining 20 minutes, let's try to answer this walang mga questions. We actually used this during our campaign in mga rural areas. So that's why it's in the vernacular so that they would be able to fully understand. So wala na ko'y time to translate this, but let's just utilize this instead. Okay, so I'll just read ha. Okay, si Susan, 14 anyos, usa ka first year high school student. Nagpuyo siya kauban sa iyang mga ginikanan ug mga igsuon sa usa ka sudlunon nga dapit sa Bahumpandan. Pedicab driver ang iyang amahan. Ang iyang inahan nakabantay nga matag-abot niya gikan sa eskwelahan, muadto si Susan sa ilang silingan para mutan-aw og TV. Kay wala man sila'y TV. Ang ilang silingan usa ka 50 anyos nga tawo, bulag sa iyang kapuyo-puyo nga miuli sa Mindanao. Nakabantay sila nga si Susan tagdugay na muuli. Usa ka adlaw ni ana gipangutana siya sa iyang inahan ug mitug-an si Susan nga sa miaging mga duha ka bulan gilugos siya sa ilang silingan. Apan nangayo kaniya og pasaylo ug karon maayo kaayo ang pagtagad kaniya. Si Susan niingon nga karon manag-uyab na sila ug nga magminyo sila pag-abot siya niya og 18. Naguol kaayo ang mga ginikanan ni Susan sa mga panghitabo. Nasuko sila sa tawo nga nag-among-among sa ilang anak ug nagplano sila nga mupasaka og sumbong. Okay, ang pangutana nato. Aduna ba'y krimen kung si Susan moingon nga manag-uyab na sila? Ngano? Kinahanglan bang dunay buhaton ang mga ginikanan ni Susan o pasagdahan na lang ang maong relasyon? Okay, let's try to understand the first question. Okay? Is there a violation or is there a crime committed by the neighbor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Naa, sir.
Okay. Kung sa may iyang nakumit nga krimen?
Underage pa tong bayi, sir.
Underage. But remember, they are boyfriend and girlfriend now. There is a relationship. And in fact, there is a promise to get married once Susan reaches the age of 18. So, do you think it is something that we need to consider?
No, sir. Kay
Mhm.
sa balaod man gyud sir basta under 18 years old naman yun ay kaso sir bisag na sila ano sir sabot sir ba.
All right. That's very good. No, that's correct. So remember, even if it was Susan who coerced the 50-year-old neighbor na mag-sexual intercourse sila, still the 50-year-old neighbor has no right to accede to the offer of Susan. Okay? How much more og iyang gilugos, di ba? So even if nisugot, even if there was consent, as long as the victim is below 18 at the time of the commission, the presumption is the victim is still not in her right mind. Okay? So that's the law. Even if valedictorian ang bata in high school. But as long as she is less than 18 at the time of the commission, then raping her would constitute a crime. So pwede pa ba ta ka-file og kaso og rape against niya? Nga nilabay naman ang 2 ka bulan?
Yes, sir.
Kay di ba
Okay.
sir, 20 years man tong giingon nimo sir?
Okay, very good. So that's good, no? You remembered our discussion. So we have this prescription of crime. So for crimes punishable by reclusion perpetua, you are given 20 years within which to file a case. Okay? So kani 2 pa ka bulan, pwede pud gyud maka-file og kaso against the perpetrator. But the question is, who can file a complaint against the perpetrator, considering that Susan is deeply in love now with a 50-year-old man? Who can file?
Katong parents.
All right, the parents. The parents can file
Parents.
in behalf. Okay. Well, the problem is during the prosecution of the case or during the proceeding, there might be a problem on the prosecution because what if the victim would no longer be cooperative, no? During the hearing. Kaya in love na ba siya ni 50 years old. So she will no longer participate in the proceeding. So the prosecution now will be having a hard time in proving the case and proving the guilt of the accused beyond reasonable doubt. The question is, maka-file ba ta? Yes, maka-file ba ta? But as to the question kung mudaog ta, that is, we are still in doubt, no? Because without the active participation of the victim, the prosecution would not be able to prove the guilt of the accused beyond reasonable doubt. So, mag-hope lang ta na si Susan would actively participate in the prosecution. Okay? So, let's change the facts. What if ni bulgar si Susan anang 18 years old na siya sa iyang parents nga when I was still 14 years old gi-rape ko niya. Now she is 18 years old and manag-uyab pagyapon sila. And there is a promise to marry. Pwede ba?
Yes, sir.
Mapakasuhan? Okay.
Pwede ba sir kay
Pwede pa makasuhan, but of course, the accused would use a defense ang ilahong relationship and the fact of marriage. Okay, mere promise is not enough. Kailangan magbinyog yun. Pag naminyoan na niya, there's no more crime of rape. Alright? Provided the child is already 18 years old. Okay? So that's correct. Now let's proceed to the next. Okay. Sexual harassment na case. Si Miriam magbag-o nga ni graduar sa kolehiyo na dawat isip tagasulat sa usa ka dakong kumpanya sa dyaryo tungod sa iyang taas nga grado sa universidad. Nakatun siya dayon sa iyang bag-ong trabaho ug nakakuha og maayong performance evaluation. Ang iyang boss nga laki friendly ug encouraging niya. Sa ikaduhang tuig sa iyang panarbaho sa dagang higayon, nihatag ang iyang boss og mga regalo niya ug gusto makipag-date kaniya. Pero nibalibad si Miriam kay naa naman siya'y boyfriend ug nagplano na sila magminyo. Wala ni hunong ang iyang boss sa pagregalo o pagtawag niya sa telepono sa iyang balay bisan gabiin ang dako. Nibalibad ra gihapon si Miriam ug nakabantay siya nga ang iyang boss na lain na ug naggahatag na niya og dili maayong performance evaluation. Nga nagasulti nga dili na kuno maayo ang iyang pagtrabaho ug wala siya'y team spirit. Na-discourage si Miriam ug ni-resign na lamang. Pangutana, ngano kaha nga ang boss ni Miriam nagpadayon man og court niya bisan og kahibalo siya nga aduna na siya'y uyab? Unsa pa man unta ang nahimo ni Miriam, ang pag-resign ba niya lamang ang sulbad sa maong problema? Okay, what do you think?
sa number 1 sir kanang temptation sir?
Temptation.
Murag na ibog yung dagay niya tong boss niya.
Alright, so the answer is very simple, di ba? Like it's ordinary, it's normal for us. to do whatever we want to do to express our love and affection to somebody kung ganahan ta. So even if naay uyab, naayuban gani, even if naay asawa na, magsige pagyapon og hatag og mga regalo because hoping that someday the attention would be transferred, no, from the boyfriend or to from the husband to this boss. Okay, but insakto ba ang gibuhat ni Miriam nga ni-resign na lamang siya, or what else can she do, no, when she faced this situation?
Pwede man siya nga makapag file og kaso sir sa.
All right. So Miriam could file a case for sexual harassment, no? That's under Republic Act 7877. Ngano mang maka-file siya sa may basis. Number 1, boss ang perpetrator, ang victim is employee. The boss has control and supervision and influence. And then naa siya mga offer nga naay kapalit. And then it happened in the working environment. So pwede, no? Pasok siya sa 7877. Next. Okay, Lina, 37, na ay unom ka anak. Ang iyang ginikanan nga kabos nga mag-uuma og naka-eskwela lang siya taman sa grade 2. Si Lina og ang iyang bana mga sakop sa usa ka dato nga tawo. Usahay si Lina patrabahoon sa balay sa ilang amo. Tungod kay gamay ra ang ilang kita, ang bana ni Lina ni adto sa bayawan para mo trabaho sulod sa 3 ka bulan. Samtang wala ang iyang bana, mianha ang ilang amo nga lalaki nga nagmotorsiklo og giingnan si Lina nga mukuyog kaniya sa ilang balay. Apan dili sa ilang balay gidala si Lina kundi sa motel o gilugos niya si Lina. Walay gisultihan si Lina sa maong dapit. Dako kayo ang iyang kahadlok nga mobalibad. Niining 3 ka higayon, gilugos siya og gihimangnuan nga naay daotang mahitabo sa iyang bana kung musumbong siya. Sa pag-abot sa iyang bana, wala kagwanta si Lina, nihilak siya o gisulti ang mahitabo. Niadto sa pulis ug nipasaka og kaso nga rape. Sa laing bahin ang tag-iya sa yuta mipasaka og sumbong nga ang bana ni Lina nangawat og karabaw ug ang iyang bana na priso. Sa inyong tan-aw, rape ba gyud ang nahitabo kang Lina or naabay posibilidad nga makadaog si Lina sa kaso ngano? What do you think? Is there rape in the situation?
Yes sir, right to sir.
Yes, sir.
Nga namang rape? What's the
Kay
basis now?
na-force, sir.
Na-force?
Force.
Okay, and next, there was presumed to have sexual intercourse. Okay? And there was threat also. So, that's rape. Okay? Naabay posibilidad gamudaog sa kaso si Lina? Daa.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because all the
Big
elements,
chance.
very good, because all the elements of rape are present in the situation. Very good. Next. Okay. Si Julie, taga Bacolod, 28 anyos nga dalaga ug may anak nga batang lalaki. Nakadungog siya nga ang iyang igagaw sa Dumaguete nagtrabaho sa Singapore. Mianhi siya dinhi sa Dumaguete ug nagpatabang pagpangita og trabaho sa iyang mga paryente. Gipaila-ila siya sa usa ka Roland nga maukuno ang mutabang pagpreparar sa iyang pasaporte. Clearance o medical certificate nga ipadala dito sa asawa ni Roland sa Singapore. Nangayo og 7,000 si Roland. Giingnan niya si Julie nga hatagan siya og kontrata sa Singapore. Dili una siya makadawat sa iyang sweldo sulod sa 6 ka bulan kay ibayad sa ilang nagasto. Pagkahuman makadawat siya og 11,000 kada bulan. Milarga siya sa Manila o gitagbo siya sa kontak ni Roland o gidala sa airport. Gisultian siya nga muadto sa pinakatumoy nga immigration counter sa wala. Pag-abot niya sa Singapore, gitagbo siya sa usa ka representante sa employment agency o gikuha ang iyang pasaporte o cellphone o gidala siya sa usa ka pamilya nga incheck nga may 4 ka anak. Nagtrabaho si Julie sugod alas 6 sa buntag hangtod tunga sa gabii. Matulog siya sa kutson nga gibutang sa salog duol sa kan-anan. Wala siya day off. Gamay ra ang pagkaon kay pirmi man adto sa gawas mo kaon ang iyang mga amo. Mao nga pirmi lang siyang gutomon. Usa ka adlaw ni ana nasuko ang iyang amo nya gibunalan siya og usa ka kahoy. Pagkasunod adlaw milaya siya dala ang iyang bag ug miadto sa employment agency. Gikasab-an hinuon siya didto o giingnan nga aduna siya'y utang nga bayran. Aduna pay daghan nga mga Filipina sama kaniya didto. Kada gabi kuhaon sila og van ug dadon sila sa usa ka boarding house. Dinhi adunay mga lalaki nga muanha og mupili og mga babayi nga ilang gamiton. Nakahigayon si Julie pag-ikyas gikan sa ahensya ug midangup siya sa Philippine Embassy ug gitabangan nga makauli sa Pilipinas. Number 1, usa ba kini kakaso sa trafficking? What do you think?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there was recruitment, so qualify siya no, sa definition sa trafficking. There was deception, all right, and the purpose is exploitation. So kisa may liable ani?
Trafficker, sir.
Okay. Ani si Roland, no? Roland, katong representante nga nitagbo niya, even the Chinese family, no? And then the employment agency, they are all liable for trafficking. Okay, next. 9262. Ang bana ni Marina nagtrabaho sa usa ka dako nga kompanya ug nagadawat og dakong sweldo. Wala siya mosugot nga motrabaho si Marina kay gusto niya nga mag-atiman ra siya sa ilang balay og duha ka anak. Wala siya kaugalingong kwarta. Pagsugod pa lang sa ilang kaminyoon, dili na maayo ang pagtagad sa iyang bana kaniya. Permi lang siyang tawgon og bugok sa dihang namablo siya og nanambok tawgon siya og baboy sa iyang bana. Dihay usa ka higayon nga suko kayo iyang bana, gilamparo siya naandan na siya nga birahon iyang buhok ug guruyon og ilamba sa bungbong ug uban pang pagdagmal. Tungod sa kaula ug kahadlok si Marina walay kaisog nga mutug-an sa iyang pamilya ug mga pulis. Dihay usa ka higayon nga ning sukol siya sa iyang bana, iyang gikamras ang nawong. Si Marina ni angkon nga nakauyab siya sulod sa 2 ka bulan nga wala nahibalo ang iyang bana. Ang pag-insulto o pangdagmal nagpadayon, wala na siya kabalo og unsa ang angayan niyang buhaton. Sulayan niyan pakig-istorya ang iyang bana ug usahay mahapsay ang ilang pagpuyo. Pero sa matag higayon nga adunay mahitabo, dapatan na usab siya. Ang pangutana, unsa kaha ang mga rason sa ban ni Marina sa iyang gipakitang kinaiya? Unsa may angayan buhaton sa ilang sitwasyon? Or let's just change the question. Is this an example of violence against women and children? What do you think?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What are the forms of violence nga makita nato sa case?
Physical,
Physical, sir.
Physical.
Yes, sir.
What else?
Tong verbal abuse, sir.
Alright, you have psychological and emotional abuse by saying to mga verbal abuses. Very good. Right, so pwede niya makapasag kaso ang iyang bana for violating RA 9262. Next, si Donna usa ka 14 anyos ka dalagita, anak ug mag-uuma. Tungod sa kalisod sa panginabuhi, napugos siya pag-undang sa pag-eskwela para mutabang sa iyang ginikanan, papangita og dugang income sa pamilya. Direkrut siya ni Lucy nga iyang higala nga mahimong usa ka model. Pag-abot sa syudad, wala siya kay balo nga sa internet di ay siya magpusing-pusing. Kauban sa uban pang mga dalagita, sila gitudluan sa ilang boss unsaon pagpusing nga sexy at ubangan sa computer nga adunay camera. Konektado kini sa internet ug ang ilang mga customer naa sa layong dapit nga kadaghanan mga foreigner. Sa una, medyo gihilasan si Donna sa pagbuhat kaniya pero tungod sa haylo sa kwarta og cellphone, siya na dani. Og unsa ang ganahan ipabuhat sa customer nila ila sab buhaton. Naay usara silang maghubo-hubo ana apod ang duha silang magdula-dula sa ilang mga pribadong parte sa lawas. Ang ilang sweldo ipaagi lang sa usa ka money transfer. Gi-raid sa mga otoridad ang maong establishmento ug nadakpan mga pahigayon ni ini. So, unsay krimen nga nabuhat? In this case,
Cybercrime, sir.
cybercrime, or ang
Child pornography.
one ani is child pornography, right? But we will include also the cybercrime. All right, so that's an example of child pornography law violation. Okay, last, photo and video voyeurism. Si Jessa o Derek, 5 na katuig nga nag-live-in partner. Intimate na ang ilang sexual nga relasyon. Tungod sa bagong teknolohiya sa computer ug internet na uso ang pagkuha og picture ug video. Nagkuha og picture ug videos lang duha samtang nagloving-loving. Ganahan si Jessa nga silang duha ra ang makakita sa maong picture ug film, pero usa ka adlaw ni ana adunay dakong problema nga niabot. Nasakpan si Derek ni Jessa nga adunay laing bayi sa kadaghan nga higayon. ganahan na kibulag si Jessa kang Derek, pero dili ganahan si Derek. Gihadlok ni Derek si Jessa nga kung makibulag siya, iyang ipakalat sa publiko ang mga sexual nga hulagway ug video nilang duha pinaagi sa internet. Musugilon unta si Jessa sa mga otoridad sa nahitabo, pero nahadlok siya nga maulawan mao nga wala na lang siya midayon og sumbong. Unsay ma-advise ninyo ni Jessa?
Report siya sa sir sa police station.
I-report, sir.
Alright.
Mag-file of case.
So remember, wala pa man napakalat ang video, no? So di siya ka-file of voyeurism, right? So maybe pwede siya mo fall under 9262 for coercing her to come back and then threatening her nga pakaulawan, di ba? And then once ipakalat na niya ang video, then that's the time that that Jessa could file a case for violating RA 9995. All right, so those are our example cases. These are actually real cases, class. Real cases. So these are some of the cases reported to our office before. So, it's already 11 o'clock. If you have questions, I'm able to cater all of them if there are.
Interns, do you have any questions or clarifications for Attorney Torimucha?
Wala ra ko, ma'am.
None, ma'am.
How about from Foundation University? Do you have any questions?
Wala ra ko, ma'am.
Wala ra, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Dave?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much to all. We have today. And should be bear in mind and the knowledge shared to us. Everyone proud of these. The parting of by our people.
Share.
Today, kindly fix your phone.
Okay. Okay. Now let's proceed to the awarding of certificates. So allow me to read the certificate. Colegio de Santa Catalina de Alejandria, College of Criminal Justice Education, Foundation University, College of Criminology, awards this certificate of recognition to Attorney Edric Torimocha in his grateful recognition for his invaluable contribution as guest speaker during the webinar on domestic violence for the criminology interns of Foundation University, College of Criminology, and Colegio de Santa Catalina de Alejandria, College of Criminal Justice Education on April 14, 2021 through Google Meet app. Awarded this at the 14th day of April 2021. Signed with a fresh specimen, Mrs. Japel May Bacod Marino, registered criminologist, MSCJ, Dean Cosca, CCJE, and Mr. Bimboy C. Cueno, registered criminologist, MSCJ, Dean FUCC. Let's give Attorney Torimocha a round of applause, class.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Attorney. where's our host, Mr. Amado, Cadet Amado?
And now, remarks would be given to us by Professor. Sir.
Okay na ta?
I assume that it is right? Cadet Amado? Closing remarks?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It is my pleasure, Nona Benar, to provide my closing remarks on behalf of Foundation University. Hello? I'm sorry I was cut off. I'm sorry I was cut off. On behalf of Foundation University College of Criminology, headed by Dean Bimboy Cueno, and Colegio de Santa Catalina de Alejandria, College of Criminal Justice Education, headed by Dean Gipilme Marenio, I would like to thank all interns of both universities for your attendance and participation in today's webinar. Also, thank you to your active and our expert on this topic, Attorney Edric Torremocha, for your impartation of your knowledge and taking time out of your busy personal and professional schedules. It is a very fruitful webinar, sir. Thank you. It will also be used by our participants to prepare for their board exam soon, as the topic is relation to our curriculum. Attorney, your positive response to our request to be guest speaker today and making this possible has been extremely valuable. Thank you, Attorney, and to our interns, participants, Dean, Marinho, thank you, and let's enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now, on Cadet Frederick Acabao, using prayer, and to be followed by our Koskahim.
Thank you, Cadet Amado. Let's bow our head. Lord God, thank you for the joys that you brought us today. May you bless us as we return to our studies. Inspire us to take on a new interest in new classes and new topics. Be with us as we discover old friendship and start ones. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Koskahim. We dream of all that we can be, and the dream you touch soon becomes a reality. Colegio de Santa Catalina, God has blessed you with light from above. We too are blessed by your heavenly light. We too are blessed by your heavenly love. One lesson we give a special care to Koskahim. We dream of all that we can be, and the dream you touch soon becomes a reality. Colegio de Santa Catalina, God has blessed you with light from above. We too are blessed by your heavenly light. We too are blessed by your heavenly love. One lesson we give a special care, to be one with all men and the burdens they bear. In our struggle and pain will one thing remain: you taught us how to share. One Christian community, ever fed, ever taught, ever free, still and gentle and humble people, beloved of all humanity. trust in God's unfailing providence in all adversity. Still and gentle enough.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, attorney.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much also.
So much to all my fellow students, to attorney, to Professor Lorich, Ma'am, for the cooperation.
Thank you also.